Imagine this. You're standing on the edge of the boat, ready to take a mighty dive into the sea, to swim along with the pretty fish, only for you to jump right in the face of a great white. I have the chills just thinking about the possibility of being in close proximity to this beast. Their menacing smile, bearing 100 daggered teeth, complements their rather unnerving reputation, which they seem to have kept up throughout time. Today, we're going to talk about 10 bone-chilling encounters people had with the great white. Let's dive deep with all our divers here. Number 10. Divers were filming their journey beneath the surface of the crystal clear water off the coast of Tofu, Mozambique, when one of them spotted a huge white approaching and began to circle them. They observed the shark leisurely circle them and approach a few of the divers. The shark appeared interested in what they were, rather than eating them, and was calm and uninterested in doing so. Before the shark resumed its cruise, the divers maintained their composure and watched the incredible occurrence take place in front of them. The divers said it was the best dive of their lives. They can only thank the universe that the shark's primary motivation was curiosity, because everyone here knows it wouldn't have been a hassle for the white to grab a bite or two at all. Number 9. If you spent the majority of your time on YouTube in 2016 like me, I'm certain that you would have come across the video titled "Man Fights Off Shark at Sydney Harbor." Sydney Harbor, being a popular place, got people discussing how such a dangerous creature was found lurking so close to the shores. The video started with a young diver strapping on a GoPro and getting ready to make a mighty dive from the top of the cliff. The moment he made the dive, he jumped right into the view of a great white. As he resurfaced, he could hear his friend shouting from above, "Shark!" in absolute alarm, and was pointing out its location to the diver. As the diver tried to get a view of where the shark was so that he could make a getaway in the opposite direction, he was greeted with a jump scare by the shark swimming right toward him. The diver thwarted and swiped desperately at the great white while swimming frantically toward the safety of the land. The integrity of this video was questioned by many because, as I mentioned earlier, it was unusual for a sea creature as such to be in relatively shallow waters, but it was backed by the fact that the possibility of such an occurrence was around 20%. Talk about the timing of life. Number 8. With friends, Kerry Daniel was spearfishing off the coast of North Queensland, Australia, close to the Great Barrier Reef, when he encountered the horror of his life. After drifting far from the group, he saw a bull shark approximately 55 yards beneath him. The shark then lunged right at him, opening its mouth to rip a chunk of flesh off him. There was nothing his diver friends could do, even though they were nearby, to assist him. Kerry took the only action he could as his life flashed before his eyes. Just in time, he used his spear rifle to defend himself by shooting the shark in its gaping mouth. The shark wrestled with it before ripping the spear gun and line from his hand. Unaware that the gun was lodged in its mouth, Kerry was waiting for it to spit it out until he realized he should just forget about his spear gun and leave the area safe and breathing. There was almost no time to react, much less protect himself, considering everything happened in the blink of an eye. Number 7. A group of divers made their way to the Guadalupe Island waters of Mexico, hoping to film a great expedition of the sharks. As they planned, they were able to get footage of all they ever wanted and more. It's almost like the shark understood his significance at the moment and decided to put on a show. The beast pulled a sudden move by bashing into one of the cages with force unimaginable, while somewhat making eye contact with the diver inside, as though he were making a point. As the same diver was narrating the incident, he explained that he was extremely lucky that the shark didn't attack from the other relatively open parts of the cage, as an attack of such impact could have easily caused the cage to give away, and he would have been shark bait. I think calling himself extremely lucky is an understatement. Number 6. This diver nearly loses his head to a tiger shark's belly while on a shark dive in the waters of Fiji. One of the divers, who was surrounded by the so pretty and colorful fish, came up to try to get a better look and landed squarely in the path of a sizable tiger shark, receiving the shock of his life. The diver was fortunate because the shark handler reacted quickly and pushed the bar between his head and the shark's open mouth, causing the shark to clamp down on it, giving the diver enough time to duck and push the shark up and away from the rest of the party. If not for the shark wrangler, the diver here would have ended up as a supper for the enormous tiger shark. If these encounters have you on the edge of your seat, then number 1 is probably going to make you think about stepping into water bodies 100 times over before you make a call. Number 5. When Julian faced the life or death encounter, he was scuba diving in the South Pacific with the Under the Pole crew. The crew was confused by a gray shark that drew their attention as the divers were just beginning the decompression phase of the dive. In all their years of diving with sharks, they had never seen anything like it before. During their ascent, Julian recorded the shark while observing it wobble oddly back and forth. When the shark suddenly turned and charged at him, biting into Julian's head, he had been following the shark off the wall and into open water. The shark attacked the diver who was filming the incident before releasing him after a heart-pounding moment. The situation deteriorated quickly. Although Julian was bleeding and they weren't sure how bad the bite was, they couldn't get him to the surface right away because they had to go through the decompression stages, which are essential for a diver's safety. He lost his rebreather during the attack when the shark chewed through his mask, but he remained composed and used his emergency bottle. Thankfully, Julian was able to endure until they got to the top, where he was stitched up and given care aboard the boat. The crew members were astounded by how quickly the attack occurred. Number 4. The unexpected occurred when these divers were searching for abalones in deep waters while documenting their progress. It was difficult to spot the approaching great white until it was too late since the waters were so murky. The shark only gave the diver a passing scrape on the back of his head, maybe out of curiosity to discover what this creature in neoprene was. The diver realized what had happened. Well, one can only imagine what would have gone through his mind. Was it a sense of panic? A sense of relief? A feeling of numbness? Let me know how you would have reacted in such a situation in the comments box below. The thought of a great white slightly touching you sends shiver down your spine, doesn't it? Wait till you find out what happens to the diver in our number 1 frightening encounter. Number 3. Johan and his friends, Eric, Francois, and Renee, were having a go at spearfishing in Arniston, Cape Town, back in 2015, unassuming of the fact that what was about to follow such an innocent activity would scare the living daylights out of them. Like a normal group of divers out to spearfish, the gang jumped into the murky waters with their spears in hand and a GoPro fastened to their heads. As they hit the bed, they started looking about, only for Johan to realize that he was noted by a great white at an arm's length away. The white was curious yet aggressive about the weird two-legged fish that were before him. Their shark took no time to launch its attack on Johan. The shark kept repeating this and kept circling back to have another go. Every time Johan fended himself with the spear in his hand. Johan was luckily able to keep this up all the way up to the surface where he could alert the crew on board about the sea beast in their proximity. Here, in the video clip, we can see that Johan, at a loss for words, manages to say the word white to alert the crew on the boat as well as his friends so that they could get to safety. Everyone's quick reaction time was quite the help, and they were able to get out of the waters unharmed. Everyone had a good laugh, but we can be absolutely sure that all their hearts were beating out of their chests. Number 2. The purpose of Brandon and his team is to capture sharks on camera. On this particular voyage, they entered a shark danger zone right off the bat, and one of the cages had a plexiglass front to tempt the sharks to engage more. After jumping into the cage, Brandon dove into the water. He was soon surrounded by great whites before he even realized it. Although Brandon was secure in the cage, the sharks were merely aggravated by this. One 18-foot-long great white constantly approached the cage, growing braver and braver with time until it ultimately attacked the float fastened to the cage. Unimaginable danger awaited Brandon as a result of the attack on the float tank, but to remove him at this time would have been equally risky. The sharks eventually got bored and swam away into the distance. As of now, we've only talked about how the sharks were just around the divers and weren't all that successful in grabbing a bite, right? Well, hold on for this one. Number 1. Off the coast of Hawaii, a group of snorkelers were recording a pod of pilot whales when an oceanic white-tipped shark suddenly surfaced and acted aggressively. It maintained some space before eventually swimming away, but only briefly. The shark returned a second time, passing several of them at much closer range, before vanishing once more. You'd think the shark would be done at this point, right? Wrong. After a while, the group turned their focus back to the pilot whales, when all of a sudden the shark reappeared, this time aiming for one of the guys who had just started to dive down. It turned quickly, biting onto the man's arm and back before retreating once more. It's like all this while the shark was contemplating whether he wanted to bite or not, and eventually decided to. And when he did, he apparently didn't like it and went back to minding his business. It's a relief we don't appeal to sharks' taste buds. From hearing these stories and having watched these clips, all I can tell is that I probably now have a fear of diving and that spear guns are a diver's best friend. Let me know how this video made you feel, or if you have any experiences to share with us.